only two classes here. Okay, base class name is itself is base, class name is derived. So you can use the class name itself as base because it is a identifier. Okay, it is not a keyword. You can use it. So we can use like a general word, or you can use the class name also. We just look at the identifier rules here. It will match. So starting character is not a digit. Blank spaces we are not used. Underscore it is not compulsory. If you want, you can use it. It is not a keyword. Okay. So by considering the rules, this is the correct identifier. You can use the class name as base, and you can use the class name as derived also. Okay. So you can use class A, class B, or class base, class derived, or capital letters BASC, capital letters derived. Like that you can use. Okay. So we have two classes. First class name is base. Second class name is derived. So we have only two classes in this program. So it is called a single level inheritance because you observe this diagram. So in single level inheritance, okay, in single level inheritance, we will be having two classes, only two classes. So one is called as base class, another one is called as derived class. See, one thing what you have to remember is like entire chapter is dependent on these two diagrams only. Remember, entire chapter is dependent on these two diagrams. And in addition to these two diagrams, some 2 or 3 diagrams will come, I will tell you. Okay. But these two diagrams are very, very important. Okay. Now, according to the present program, so where we try to understand, we have got two classes. One class is called as base class, another class is called as derived class. So if we have only two classes, then that is called a single level inheritance. Okay. Next. So if it is single level inheritance, then according to this diagram, you just see which mode you have mentioned, whether you have mentioned private mode or public mode or protected mode, which mode you have mentioned. Okay. Now we will see in the program which mode we have mentioned. So where we will come to know, at this particular line we will come to know in which mode derived class is inheriting. So that is public mode, because you just look at this syntax. What is it? This syntax you just see. When you are writing one more class, and if you are calling that as derived class, the syntax will look like this. Class name, sorry, class is a keyword, derived class name, colon symbol, access specifier name, base class name. Okay. So you just observe this. Class is a keyword, class name is derived class, then colon symbol, okay, then public mode, then base class name. Okay. So this is the way we write the derived class. Then inside derived class we have written some code. So in base class we have written some code. In derived class we have written some code. Okay. See, you see in base class IJ. Okay. By default this data is private. Okay. Data that is I. Okay. And J. By default these are private data or private. Okay. Then coming to the public section, we have two functions, set function and show function, right? Then coming to the derived class, here data K is private. Okay, it is put into private section. Data K is private. Then coming to the public section, we have two functions, derived and show K. Okay. Out of these two functions, you just observe here one more concept we have come across here, constructor concept, because class name is derived, function name is also derived. So this is called as constructor. If class name and function name both are same, then it is called as constructor. In base class, we don't have constructor. So class name and function names are not matching, so there is no constructor. By default, compiler will supply one default constructor that is not present in the program. But when programs are executed, it will happen. So that we will not see that means in the program, but internally it happens. Okay. But here explicitly we have given. So implicit means automatic, explicit means manually we are writing. So manually we have written the constructor that is in the derived class. Okay. Next, coming to the main function. So in main function, what we are doing, derived OB. So what is the meaning of derived OB? So here, OB is an object of class derived. OB is an object of class derived. Okay. See, whenever we are writing an object of the class, and in addition to writing an object of class, if you put parentheses, you just observe here, we have put parentheses. In parentheses, I have written the value 3. When you write like this, constructor should be called. See, when you are learning inheritance, basic things also have to remember. That is about class, about properties of class, about constructor and how constructors are called, how values are passed. Those things also you have to remember. Okay, then only further problems will become easy. So constructor concept is also there here. So OB of 3 means OB is an object, 3 is a value. So derived, constructor derived is called here. When constructor derived is called, this value 3 will be copied to value x. Value 3 will be copied to value x because one value we are passing, one parameter is there. Okay, and afterwards x value is copied to k value. Okay, so once 3 is passed to x, x value is copied to k value. So if you look at this diagram, you will come to know so how it is working. Okay, see, you just look at this line, derived OB of 3. OB is an object of class derived. So when you write object and parenthesis, in the parenthesis write the value, then constructor will be called. See, the general rule is whenever object is created, constructor is called. That is the general rule. Whenever object is created, constructor is called. In addition to that, if you have parameterized constructor, what is the meaning of parameterized constructor? In the constructor, if you're writing at least one parameter, like here I've written x, x is the parameter. So if you're writing at least one parameter, that is called as parameterized constructor. So how it is called? You have to put the parenthesis for an object, you have to write the value, that value is copied to the constructor. Okay. Now 3 will be copied to x. Once 3 is copied to x, x will be copied to k. Okay. So once x is copied to k, so how we have to understand is for object OB for variable k, value is 3. For object OB for variable k, value is 3. You just look at this diagram. So object OB, k value is 3. About I and j later we will see, but about k we got the value. Value is 3. For object OB for variable k, value is 3. Okay. Next, in the program, what is the next sentence you see? OB dot set of 1 comma 2. See, this point how to understand. This statement how to understand. Okay, concentrate more here. Okay, OB dot set of 1 comma 2. What things you have to understand is, first thing, this object OB belongs to which class? First point, object OB belongs to which class? This set function belongs to which class? Two things, object OB belongs to which class, set function belongs to which class. Now you see, object OB belongs to derived class, set function belongs to base class. Here we should get a question, compulsory we have to get a question, then only we will understand this concept very easily. The question is, see, object we are considering derived class object, function we are considering base class function. That means, see, whenever we are calling a function by using an object, object and function both should belong to same class. See, till we come to the inheritance concept, what we have to understand is function and object should belong to same class. But here it is different. OB is an object of derived class. Okay, but set function belongs to base class. So now whether this statement is correct or not. Okay, if there is no inheritance concept, this statement is wrong because object and function are not matching. Object belongs to derived class, function belongs to base class. It is not matching. When comes to the inheritance concept, we have inherited. That means we are getting the properties of base class to the derived class. Properties of base class to the derived class. When you are getting the properties of base class to derived class, by using derived class object only you can access. Okay, so when you are getting the properties of base class to derived class, by using derived class object only you can access. The meaning of that is, see, we have inherited in public mode, right? Again, you come to this diagram. See, when you inherit derived class in public mode, what is the status here? You just look at this diagram. Public members of the base class becomes the public members of the derived class. Public members of the base class becomes the public members of the derived class. The meaning of that is, see here, these two are the public members of the base class. These two will come and sit into the derived class. In this way, how to understand. Okay, internally it will not happen like this. Okay, but we have to understand like this. Just a minute. So internally it doesn't happen like this, but in that way we have to understand. Then only we can get the concept clear. Okay, public members of the base class will become the public members of the derived class. Now you see, what is the thing? So set function I have written in derived class, right? I can say set function belongs to derived class and object OB also belongs to derived class. So this statement is correct. I hope you people are getting. Okay. Okay. So, so here, first thing I will delete this. Okay. Okay. Now, see, if inheritance concept is not there, if I don't consider inheritance concept, that means if I delete this, sorry, if there is no inheritance concept, if you consider this statement, we should get a question. The question is, see, object OB belongs to derived class, set function belongs to base class. See, object and function both should belongs to the same class. Then only this statement becomes correct. If suppose, the meaning of that is, if suppose, if I am writing like this, base class name, B is an object, then B dot set of 1 comma 2. This statement is correct because B is an object of base class, set is function of base class. Both belongs to same class. B is an object of base class, set is a function of base class only. You just look at the function set where we have written in the base class only. So according to that, statement is correct. Object and function both belongs to base class only. But according this statement, in this statement we get a question because OB object belongs to derived class, set function belongs to base class. So we cannot access. Okay, that is the question. Okay, so in that case, what you have to consider? You have to look at this diagram. What is the diagram? When we write inheritance concept, when you look at the mode, private, public, and protected mode. In case of public mode, so if you inherit the if the derived class is inherited in public mode, public members of the base class will become the public members of the derived class. So about protected we will see later. Only about public we will consider. Public members of the base class will become the public members of the derived class. The meaning of that is, see, the meaning of that is you just look at this mode, public mode it is, right? So public members of the base class, okay, becomes the public members of the derived class. Like this you have to understand. Actually, in this way, you will not write in a program. Automatically, it will not write or we will not write like this. We have to understand like that. Internally, it works like that. Okay. So, public members of the base class becomes the public members of the derived class. Now, if I write like this, there is no confusion at all because set function, yes, it is present in derived class and OB object belongs to derived class. Now, set function belongs to derived class. So, this statement is correct. Okay. Next, OB dot show. This is also correct because OB is an object of derived class. Show function, yes, it has become the public member of the derived class, so it is correct. Actually, these functions belongs to base class only, but we have inherited. So we are inheriting in public mode. So when you inherit in public mode, public members of the base class becomes the public members of the derived class. So by using object of derived class, you can access both the functions. So only it is correct. So when you access the members of functions of base class, what happens? You see here. OB dot set of 1 comma 2, 1 will be copied to A, 2 will be copied to B, again A will be copied to I, B will be copied to J. So only for object OB, for I and J, we will get the value 1 and 2. See what values we are getting and how these values are passed, that we know already. In classes and objects we have discussed in every program. It's not at all a difficult. Only thing is you have to understand these lines. The understanding these lines is very, very important. Whether this is correct or not, whether we are getting error or not, like that. So OB dot set of 1 comma 2 is correct because of this. Public members of base class have become the public members of derived class, so it is correct. So set function, now it is a member of derived class. So function is also a member of derived class. So you can write OB dot set 1 comma 2, OB dot show function. So both statements are correct. So when if it is correct in this way it will work. 1 will be copied to A, 2 will be copied to B, A will be copied to I, B will be copied to J. So for object OB, we are getting I value 1, J value 2, K value 3. Okay. Now coming to the last line, OB dot show K. Here there is no question at all. because that means there is no confusion at all, because OB object belongs to derived class. Show K function also belongs to derived class only. Both object and function belongs to same class only. So there is no question at all. So directly it will call. So it will display the value. See here, ob.show K, it will display the value 1, 2, and 3. There is no question. Only thing is, when you are trying to access the function which do not belong to that class, when you are trying to access the function which do not belong to that class, then we should get a question. That means set show these two functions, actually these functions doesn't belong to derived class, but we are trying to access. So how we can access? By making that mode of inheritance as public. If you make the mode of inheritance as public, then both functions they are in base class, that is public mode, those becomes the public members of the derived class, then you can access. So we will not get any error. Okay. Okay, now you can go through this program. Okay, if you come across any doubt, you can ask. Okay. Okay. Next, all public and protected members of base class become private members of derived class when the base class is inherited by using the private access specifier. For example, the following program will show error because both set and show are private elements of derived. So what they are telling in this program is, see, in the previous program we have considered, just a minute. So in the previous program, we have considered two classes, that is base class and derived class. And the derived class is inherited by using the access specifier public. Okay. So because you have inherited by using access specifier public, so because you have inherited by using access specifier public, so you can access the public data member of base class. Now you see, you just look at this line. Okay, so if you just look at this line, so derived class is inherited. That means we have written derived class by using private access specifier. So if you are using private access specifier, then at these lines you will get error. See, you just look at these lines in the main function. So in the previous program also we have used the same line. In this also we have used the same line. So there is nothing change between previous program and this program. Only thing is this word. Instead of writing public mode, I have written private mode. Only that is the change. Instead of writing public mode, I have written the private mode. Okay. So only you will get error at these lines. Why you will get error at these lines means you look at this diagram. See this diagram, see. What is the diagram? First mode we are doing. What is first mode? First mode of inheritance, private mode. So when you inherit in private mode, public members of derived class will become the private members of derived class. Protected members of derived class, base class will become the private members of derived class. That means whatever you are considering members of the base class, those members will become private. If it becomes private, then in the main function you cannot access. Remember, this is general rule. When the data and functions are private, it cannot be accessed in the main function. So only will get error at this line. So only that thing it is included in the program. The difference between previous program and this program is, in previous program we have considered this mode as public, so we were not getting errors at this line. Now we are considering this as private mode, so we are getting errors at this line. See what happens is, see when you make that is inheritance mode as private, what happens? You just see these members, these data members, these functions will come and sit into the private section. Okay. So here it will not include in public section, it will be including private section. So when you include in private section, in the main function you cannot access. Okay. See, if you include in public section in the main like this, if you include in public section in the main function, you can access both the functions. But if you include in private section in the main function, you cannot access. See why we have to include in private section in derived class? Because of this mode, private. You are telling it is private mode, so you should include in private section. If you include in private section, then you cannot access in the main function. So if you cannot access in the main function, you get error. So only the message is error. Cannot access set because set has become private in derived. So if you look at the comments, you can understand very much clearly. Because set has become private in derived, so you cannot access. Similarly for show function also, it has become private, so you cannot access. So that is the meaning. Okay.